Ahoy! Welcome back to Monday Magic. I'm Monday. This is episode 5, Battle Tribal. The commander for this deck is Ramos Dragon Engine, a 6-mana 4/4 with flying. It says whenever you cast a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Ramos for each of that spell's colours, and then at instant speed you can remove 5 +1/+1 counters from him to add double Wooburg. The artifact of the deck. Arcane Signet, you know what it does. Chromatic Lantern is for colour fixing, because it's a Wooburg deck and we need that. Same with the Chromatic Orrery. Commander Sphere, mana Rock, and draw a card. Expedition Map is to go and search for lands. You can use it for colour fixing or for a secret land, which we'll talk about later. Felwar Stone is essentially a commander sphere in this deck. It's all colours. Power Conduit. You can use this to tap, remove a counter from a permanent you control, and you can either put a charge counter on an artifact or put a +1/+1 on a creature. And you'll see what we're doing with this pretty shortly. And then Soul Ring, because commander without a Soul Ring isn't worth playing, you know? So the battles for this deck. So let's talk about battles. Battles are a new card type that was introduced in March of the Machines. They're a permanent. You cast it for its mana cost. It enters the battlefield, and then a opponent is picked to defend it, and the person that defends it can use their creatures as blockers, and then yourself and the other opponents of the defender can attack it. It will enter with a number of counters on it equal to the number that's printed on the bottom right hand side of the card, and when it reaches 0 you exile the battle and then cast it transformed without paying its mana cost. The good thing about how this works with our deck in particular is Ramos cares about the number of colours in the cast spells. So in this instance we would cast the Invasion of Alara, we would get 5 +1/+1 counters onto Ramos, and then if we removed all the counters it would exile, cast for the other side of it, and that is also all colours, so that would be another 5 +1/+1 counters onto the commander, sort of making it almost a free spell, or even netting extra value, because we can add double Wooburg by taking those 5 counters off. There are 26 battles in this deck. So we'll go through them. Most of them are just sort of pretty basic utility things. This one in particular is a very good one. The Invasion of Alara is probably one of the best battles in the deck. You just get lots of value. It does a little bit of everything, which is real nice. Archivos and Invocation of Founders. You can search Library Graveyard for an instant or sorcery. There's some interesting instants of sorceries in this deck, so that can be quite handy, and then you can transform into an enchantment that copies things. The Invasion of Asgol enters, target player sacrifices a creature and loses a life, so a bit of potential removal. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 if a permanent was put into a graveyard. So this is a little guy that gets a little bit bigger. The Invasion of Dominaria. When it enters, you gain 4 life and draw a card. Nice little thing. And then a flying 4/4 with vigilance. We want to be hitting the battles as much as we can. The whole idea of this deck is to spew a load of battles onto the battlefield and then hit them. So flying attackers are really good, and especially with vigilance is a nice little touch. Ergamon says when it enters, you can make a treasure and then you can loot. So it could be a bit of card advantage, and it transforms into a 3/4 with trample. And again, you can, when it enters, you can discard a card if you do search your library for a land, or battle, reveal it, put it into your hand. So some of the really nice battles that we want, we can use this to go and get. Fiora is used as a board wipe, and then when it transforms into a Menace Death Touch, and when it attacks, remove all counters to one target permanent. And you notice there's a bit of a counter removal theme within this deck, and that's because obviously if Marchesa attacks, we can pick our best battle, have them all gone, and then just cast that spell instantly. Gobakan enters, look at target opponent's hand, you can exile an online card. For as long as the card remains exiled, the owners may play it. It costs 2 more to cast. And then it transforms into an enchantment, which at the beginning of your end step put a +1/+1 on each creature that attacked, so it's a nice way to build the board up a bit. And then it has an activated ability to sacrifice certain creatures you control, get hexproof and indestructible. So for 2 mana, this battle does quite a lot of work actually, it's pretty good. Ikoria, X and green. When it enters the battlefield, search your library and or graveyard for a non-human creature card with mana value X or less. There are a few creatures in here, so depending on the situation, it could be good to get. And then it transforms into an 8/8 with reach. For each non-human creature you control, you may have it assign damage as though it weren't blocked. Our commander is a non-human creature, so if we hadn't managed to get it big enough, we can start whomping people for commander damage. Invasion of Innistrad is removal, and then transforms into an enchantment that says when it enters, create 2 black zombies, and then you can use an activated ability on this for a bit of graveyard hate, which I think most decks should have some of. The Invasion of Ixalan enters, look at the top 5 cards, you can reveal a permanent card from among them, put it into your hand, the rest onto your bottom. Battles are permanents, which is nice. And then Trample 4/3, when you cast it, it gains indestructible. Whenever you cast a spell, it gains indestructible, so it's a handy little blocker slash attacker. The Invasion of Kamigawa enters the battlefield, tap target artifact or creature, put a stun counter on it, and then it becomes a flying 2/3 when it deals combat damage to a player or battle, draw a card. So again, a flying attacker to help hit our battles down, and also a bit of card draw as well. Invasion of Karsus enters, it deals 3 damage to each creature and each planeswalker. So if you play with any pesky token generating decks, other people in your pod are making lots of 1/1s, 2/2s, 3/3s, this can just sort of wipe all them out for 4 mana, which is nice. And then it becomes an elemental with ward, pay 2 life, and whenever you cast a spell, Refraction Elemental deals 2 damage to each opponent. And again, when we are transforming these battles, they are exiled and then cast for the other side without paying its mana cost. So any other battles you transform while the Refraction Elemental is on the battlefield will still count, which is really nice. The Invasion of Kylum enters the battlefield. 2 target creatures get +2/+0 vigilance and haste, and then it becomes a sorcery that says make 2 3/2 red and white warrior creature tokens. Whenever this creature and at least one other creature token attack, put a+1 on this creature. Extra bodies on the battlefield. The initial battle can give you a commander vigilance, which is pretty nice, especially if you're going to be swinging at battles and stuff like that. The Invasion of Lorwyn enters, destroy target non-elf creature an opponent controls with power X or less, or X is the number of lands you control. Potentially you've got 6 lands here, if not more, so you're destroying something power 6 or less, and then it transforms into a creature which is power equal to the number of lands you control, so it just slowly gets bigger as the game goes on. Invasion of Moag enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 on each creature you control. It's just a nice little buff to the table. And then it becomes a 3/3 with ward 2. At the beginning of your end step, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Our commander cares about having +1/+1 counters on it, so this is a nice way to help build it up over time. The Invasion of Murgaranda enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on a target creature you control. Again, the commander, and then it can fight. So you can buff your commander a bit, help get towards those 5 counters that we want for the mana, and then you can fight something to get rid of it as well. And then it becomes a 4/4 at the beginning of combat on your turn. Another target creature gets +2/+2, loses all abilities until end of turn. So you can use this on an opponent's blocker with Death Touch or Indestructible or something like that. Handy way to removing abilities. It can be really, really useful in some situations. Invasion New Capenna enters the battlefield. You may sack an artifact or creature. When you do, exile target artifact or creature an opponent controls. We do make a few tokens with this, so you can sack one of your tokens and get rid of something else, and then it becomes an equipment. So whenever a creature attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature and each other creature you control that shares a creature type with it. We don't care too much about the sharing of the creature types, but if we whack this on the commander, again, it's more +1/+1 stuff. It's really nice. Invasion of Pyrulia enters the battlefield, scry 3, then reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land or a double face card, draw a card. battles are double-faced cards, so that sort of works well for this deck. And then it becomes a 4/4 with Trample, Ward 2, and other transformed permanents you control have Trample and Ward 2. So any of the other big things that you're getting from the other sides of the battles will have Trample and Ward 2, which is nice. Invasion of Ravnica. When it enters, exile target non-land permanent an opponent controls that isn't exactly 2 colours. That hits quite a lot of things. And then it becomes a 5/5 that says whenever you cast a spell that's exactly 2 colours, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a card that's exactly 2 colours from among them, put it into your hand. It's a bit of card advantage. A lot of these battles are exactly 2 colours. I think 1 or 2 of the creatures are also that, so we can hit a few things and help cycle through your deck. Segovia says when it enters, make 2 1/1s with Trample, and then it becomes a legendary serpent that says non-creature spells you cast have Convoke. Battles are non-creature spells. You can see what we're doing with this one. And then at the beginning of your end step, untap up to 4 target creatures. So again, a bit of pseudo vigilance if we want to swing with our big flying commander to hit a battle, and then at the end of the turn we can just untap it, so we can still have it as a nice big blocker. Invasion of Chandelier. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 3 target permanents from your graveyard to your hand. Battles are permanents. If we've got any that turn into sorceries, anything that gets removed, we can get them back into the hand if we want them again. And then it becomes an enchantment. This is the beginning of your upkeep. You may put a permanent card from your hand onto the battlefield, which is a nice effect. Anything that you have, you can just whap out for free. Invasion of Tolvada. Enters the battlefield, return target non-battle permanent from your graveyard to the battlefield. So this is recursion, but unfortunately can't be used for our battles, and it transforms into an enchantment that says creature tokens you control get +1/+0 and have lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. Something I forgot to mention before, guys, is if you look on the transformed side next to the word enchantment, there is a little circle. In this case it's a black and white circle that tells you the colours of this spell. So again, as I said before, with Ramos on the battlefield, if this battle gets transformed, it is a 2 coloured spell because it's the black and the white, so you do cast it even though you're not paying for it, so your commander will get 2 +1/+1 counters when this enchantment is cast. It's really nice. Invasion of Ulgrutha. Enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to any other target and you gain 3 life. You can just do it to someone's face, you can do it to a problematic creature, whatever seems best at the time. And it transforms into a legendary flying 3/3. Whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, put a +1/+1 counter on it and you gain 1 life. Can get pretty big, and again it's a flyer. We like flyers for hitting our battles. The Invasion of Vryn. Enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then discard a card. And it becomes an artifact that has the activated ability, pay 1, tap it, sack it, copy target spell you control. And again, the transformed battles are still spells on the stack, so if there's something particularly good that you want to copy, you can do that. And it even says that a copy of a permanent spell becomes a token, so if you've got something that's pretty nasty you would like 2 of, you can have that for this. The Invasion of Xerix. Enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand, so you can use that on something of yours. If you wanted to recast it, you can use it on something of an opponent if it's problematic. And it becomes a flying creature that says its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. Again, flying's really nice, and this can get bigger over time as we're getting more and more creatures onto the battlefield. The Invasion of Zendikar. Enters, search your library for 2 basics, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So it's 4 mana to ramp 2. It's pretty standard rate for that, and it becomes a 4/4 with vigilance and haste. As long as it's on the battlefield, it is a land in addition to its other types, and you can tap it to add 1 mana of any colour. So let's talk about the creature. We'll start with the Bop. We all know what the Bop does. Bop's a great little 1-drop. Chisei, Heart of Oceans. It's a flying 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice it unless you remove a counter from a permanent you control. So the battles, even though they are being protected by an opponent, are still under your control. So this basically says at the start of your turn, take a counter off a battle. One of our new ones from Marvel. Apologies if those don't like Universes Beyond. It's just a really good card in this deck. It's a fly-in 2/3. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of colours that spell is. So again, sort of taking advantage of the fact that when we are hitting our battles and transforming them, we are recasting them. So if we have a Wooburg battle with Crystal on the board, that's 5 damage, and then we can hit it, remove all the counters, transform it, and that's 10 damage to the table for 8 mana, let's say, when you take into account the cost of the battle and of Crystal herself. Pretty good. Dryad of the Elysian Grove is colour fixing and an extra land drop each turn. The General Ferris Rokirik is hexproof from monocoloured, and whenever you cast a multicoloured spell, create a 4/4. Again, taking advantage of the multicoloured nature and the casting from exile. Glisser Sunslayer. First strike, Death Touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, you can draw a card and lose life, destroy an enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from a target permanent. So this is just a really nice all-arounder, bit of card advantage, bit of removal, and again, we can use it to remove counters from permanents. Hex Parasite has an activated ability of pay X and a Phyrexian black, remove up to X counters from target permanent. For each counter removed, Hex Parasite gets +1/+0 until end of turn. We don't care too much about the second bit, but if we have a bit of mana left over, if we've been held enough interaction or we've got nothing else to do with it, you can pay X and 2 life or a black, and then start removing counters from your battles and getting more value from them that way. Gigantha the Wellspring goes in pretty much every Wooburg deck. I don't know why it wouldn't. It has an activated ability, tap it, add Wooburg. It's just handy for paying for stuff. Mutated Cultist is devoid, so annoyingly we don't get anything for our commander from this, but it was only would have been 1 anyway. But it says when you cast this spell, remove all counters from up to 1 target permanent or opponent, and the next spell you cast costs 1 less for each counter removed this way. And it has Death Touch, so it's a nice blocker, but again, when we cast it, we can use it to empty off a battle's counters, get a free spell from that, and then the next thing that we cast costs less to cast as well. Really nice. Nelfshi fly. Whenever you cast this spell from exile, which we do with the battles, copy it. You can choose new targets for the copy. If it's a permanent, it gains haste, and at the beginning of the end step, sacrifice it. So we just get an extra value from the transformed battles, essentially. Ornithopter of Paradise is a little mana dork. Scholar of New Horizons enters with a +1/+1, and then you can tap it, remove a counter from a permanent you control, search for a plains card and reveal it. Notably, this does not say basic plains, this just says plains, so we've got trios and stuff in here we can go and fetch, and also remove counters from our battles at the same time. Really, really nice card. Sigarda. Other permanents you control have hexproof, just a bit of help protecting the battles if someone's going to try and destroy them without removing the counters and stuff like that. And also you can look at the top card of your library at any time. I don't think the Angel and Human matters too much in this, but it's just a nice way to protect our boards. Thief of Blood is an incredible card in this deck. It's a flying 1/1, and then when it enters the battlefield, remove all counters from all permanents, and this gets +1/+1 for each counter removed this way. So if we have 4 or 5 battles, you're talking up to 20 counters on the battlefield across all boards. We play this, we get a flying 21/21 and 5 free spells from our battles being transformed at the same time. It is really, really good. Alongside the fact that if your opponents are playing +1/+1 counters and stuff like that, it hurts their boards a lot as well. Really, really good card. And the Vampire Hexmage, 2-drop, first strike 2/1, and then it has the activated ability, sacrifice it, remove all counters from target permanent. So again, we can use it for our battles. And another card that is also in the deck, which if you're anything into Magic, you might have guessed already. So the enchantments are a Leyline Immersion. 4 mana, enchant legendary creature, it gives it ward 2 and the activated ability to tap, add 5 mana in any combination of colours, spend this only to cast spells. So if you whack this on your commander then gets ward 2, which is a nice little bonus. but you can remove 5+1/+1s to add double Wooburg, and then tap it to add 5 mana in any. So you can have Wooburg, Wooburg, Wooburg with this thing on your commander. It can generate so much mana, it's absolutely incredible. A Maelstrom Nexus, first spell you cast each turn has Cascade, just a nice way to get a bit more value. We're playing Wooburg, why would we not? Mishra's Wake, creatures you control get +1/+1, and your lands tap for an additional mana ramp and a bit of buffage for your board. Nice all-rounder. And then Whirlwind of Thought, whenever you cast a non-creature spell, draw a card. You know what I'm going to say. Battles are non-creatures. The exiled versions, some of are not creatures. It's just a way to keep our hand full, keep drawing cards through. Instants. There's only 2 instants in this deck. It's a counterspell to counter spells, and a growth spiral to draw a card, put a land onto the battlefield. You know, what more do we need? What more do we need? We're playing battles, guys. We don't want instants. We want battles. And then the lands is Cascading Cataracts, filter land to hit the lands, the colours that we need. City of Brass, 1 mana of any colour, hurts us a little bit, don't care. Command Tower does the Command Tower. Crisis Catacombs, these are lair lands, and these are something that I didn't know about until semi-recently, and they're like a bounce land, but they don't enter tapped and they colour fix. So let's say we have a forest, basic forest on the battlefield, we can tap that for a green, and then play the lair land, return the forest to our hand, and then we can still tap this one for whatever colours that it taps for. They're actually really, really good, and surprisingly cheap to pick up, to be fair. There's another one of our lair lands there in different colours. There are a cycle of 5. And then the Dark Depths. We're playing a deck that cares about removing counters from permanents. Why would we not play Dark Depths? It's a land. It says it enters with 10 ice counters. You can pay 3 to remove an ice counter from it. And when it has no ice counters on it, you sacrifice it and you make a 20/20 flying indestructible. Now, if we're already running the synergies to remove counters from permanents, it seems an absolute no-brainer. In theory, I think like turn 3, if you have a Dark Depths out and you get the Vampire Hexmage, the 2 mana one, you can have a 20/20 flying indestructible by turn 3 if you just happen to pull the cards that you need. And there is an artifact that there's at the start of the video that searches for any land, so we can go and fetch this if this is something that we need to do. Really, really good in this deck. Yet another lair land. Evolve the Wilds just colour fixes us. Exotic Orchard, again, it's a command tower in this deck because we're all colours. Field of Ruin, a nice bit of land removal if people are playing utility lands that are sort of getting in the way. Glacial Chasms and Maze of Myths. It's just a good... I think every deck should run a Field of Ruin, in my opinion. Just 2 basic forests, 2 basic islands, Jetmare's Garden, 2 basic mountains, Path of Ancestry, Plains ×2, Rafine's Tower, Reflecting Pool, Reliquary Tower in case we're drawing a lot, another lair land, Rupture Spire, enters, pay 1 or sack it, and then it adds 1 mana of any colour, so you just can't have it down in turn 1 basically. Spara's Headquarters, Swamp ×2, yet another lair land, Xander's Lounge, and Zeotora's Proving Ground. Now, the budget for this deck, the current pricing is probably around €200. I'm not entirely sure why that is in dollars off the top of my head. Half of that budget goes on this land base, so if you wanted to build this deck and for a bit cheaper, you could absolutely just change the lands around a bit and have some different utility lands that don't do quite what we're doing here. I just put them in because I happen to have them already as part of my collection. Or Proxy. Proxy's always good. The sorceries. 8th Snap, 5 mana, remove all counters from all permanents and exile all tokens. Now this can hit a couple of our own tokens, but we don't really care that much about them. What we care about is all counters from all permanents. You know what the deck does by now. And also, again, if an opponent is playing a stinky token generator deck, unlucky for them, I suppose. Begin the invasion. It's X and Wooburg. Search your library for up to X battle cards with different names, put them onto the battlefield. So if we have our commander out and it's got 5 counters, we can remove those 5 counters, add Wooburg, cast this, get the fire counters back, and go and get 5 battles that we want. So if we want to ramp, we get a battle that's got ramp on it. If we want to do something big nasty, we go and get the Wooburg one. Really, really good. Conflux, sort of similar to Begin the Invasion. It's 3 in Wooburg to search for 1 Lurch Library for a card of each colour, basically. But if you have multicoloured cards, you can pick which ones you want. Cultivate is ramp. Eerie Ultimatum, return any number of permanent cards with different names to your graveyard to the battlefield. Battles are permanent, so if we have loads of battles in the graveyard, we can just get them all back again. Farseek is obviously just ramp. Kadama's Reach is obviously just ramp. Nature's Law is obviously just ramp. We're playing a Wooburg deck. We need as much ramp as we possibly can, hence the rampant growth. Render and is a sorcery for 3. Remove up to 5 counters from target permanent. Draw a card. Does exactly what we want this deck to do. Ruinous Ultimatum is just a nasty one-sided board wipe, but why would we not run it? We have lots of mana generation, and we don't like our opponents having stuff. So there you go. Scatter Claim is ramp. And finally is 3 visits. And that is the deck, gang. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you want to play this deck, if you end up playing it online or you start proxying it. It's a lot of fun. It does loads and loads of stuff, and I suppose the sort of idea behind this deck is you don't have to build it. A whole deck full of battles is pretty dumb, but there are definitely uses for battles. They were just really, really overlooked in my opinion, which means they are going for really cheap, so you can build some pretty good budget stuff with them. And they can fit into quite a lot of decks. If you look at the battles, you'll probably find one that you can go, oh yeah, that goes into one of my decks actually. But yeah, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed it, do the engagement stuff. And until next time, Monday out.